Hi, this is Sarah Mikesell with the Cattle Site, and today we're here with Ian McConnell. He is the Director of International Sustainability for Tyson, as well as the President for the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. Thanks for being with us today, Ian.
It's great to be here.
Very good, and we are at the Global Conference for Sustainable Beef in Denver, and have just kind of gotten through the first day, and the conference is going to continue on for a couple extra days, and I believe it even ends with some tours of local ranches here. So it'll be great for people from all over the world to be able to see and experience some U.S. Agriculture and beef.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you the forecast was a bit warmer when I packed though, so we might, a lot of us Aussies might be a bit cold out in the fields on Thursday.
Very good. Well, let's talk a little bit about sustainable beef, and tell us a little bit about, I guess let's talk about challenges in the industry, and what do you see as some of the biggest challenges that the global industry faces?
I think the biggest challenge, and a challenge we've been discussing today here at the Communicators Summit, the first day of our conference, is how do we actually communicate the progress, the efforts, and the work that's happening already throughout the beef supply chain, but particularly on the ground with the farmers and ranchers, to the consumer that's beginning to ask more and more questions. As a company that wants to sell to customers today and to the customers of tomorrow, we need to be able to begin to take those good news stories and tell them to consumers, as well as drive change in the places we need change. And I think that's another challenge. How do we own up to some of those areas we want to improve and drive change in those places too?
Very good. And how is the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef able to address some of these challenges that you see?
By bringing people together and finding what the solutions are. I think these are big challenges that we as food companies can't do on our own. We need to hear from producers about what the solutions are around how we work together. We need to hear from the finance sector about how we might invest in and drive change through finance. We need to hear from companies that are talking to customers around what are they hearing, but also have them armed with the stories and information to talk to consumers. And then we need to package all that information together and demonstrate progress towards our global goals. So bringing people together is what we do, is our bread and butter, is the GRSB, to find those solutions. And we're making some big progress.
Very good. And let's talk a little bit about the goals, right? Because those are fairly new. And I think it's worth walking through those with our listeners or our readers. Can you kind of share those and just kind of walk people through?
Yeah, so we've got 3 goals currently. One on climate, to reduce by 30% our global warming impact. We've got animal welfare goal around providing animals with a life worth living. And then we've got a net positive nature goal, so demonstrating that the beef industry plays a net positive role in nature. And those 3 goals are written to be relevant to the beef industry globally. So in Southern Africa, to Europe, to Argentina, Brazil, the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. We've got roundtables all around the world. So those goals become a really unifying set of ambitions that we're now working on. And right now we're at the point where we're trying to create baselines and data sets that will enable us to report progress in future years.
Very good. And I think that it's important to share with people a little bit about how different beef production can be around the world.
Yeah, and that was one of the real challenges we faced in writing those goals. Is the challenges we see in the middle of Kansas are very different from what we see in southern Argentina, in Germany, in Poland, in Ireland. So bringing people together to understand, and I think it was useful also to think, where do we want to be in 5 years rather than where we are now? And what we saw then was an alignment around, we want beef to be part of the thriving food system and a recognised and trusted part of a thriving food system. To do that, we're going to need to help build consumer trust by sharing values with the consumer, by ensuring we're aligning our values as an industry with what consumer, policymakers and the finance sector want. And I think our goals allow us to start talking with one language to all those markets.
Very good. And it's worth noting there are a lot of different types of people here from the whole value chain, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of different constituencies. So we have processors, retailers, allied services, so animal health companies and finance. And then we've got, by far our largest constituency is the production sector. either representative bodies or even ranchers and farming businesses themselves, which really provides so much richness to the conversation around how we do sustainable beef production rather than just talking about selling it and financing it.
It was really interesting today in this communications summit that there was, at least on one of the panels, I guess the one panel that we had, there was a producer there, and this gentleman offered such fantastic insight.
Yeah, and it is such an important voice. It's very easy for us to become isolated as sustainability professionals who sit around very progressive people, but actually making sure we're grounded in the reality of what's happening on the ranch, understanding that a rancher these days is a businessman, a veterinarian, a mechanic, and we're trying to add something else to that. So how do we ensure that there's rewards in them for them in this as well? Very
good. And let's switch gears a little bit and talk about what kind of role does GRSB play for Tyson Foods? I mean, obviously, you're one of many people who are part of kind of a leadership team that come, as you said, across the industry and across the value chain. And how does that really work for Tyson Foods?
Yeah, for us at Tyson, we need to be able to engage in that broader sustainability discussion. We need to learn from others. We also need to make sure that we're headed in the same direction as others. I think one of the biggest risks is that companies like us head in a direction different to others, and then we leave ranchers sort of stuck in the middle. So we need to make sure we're working in one direction. We also just learn a lot. We learn a lot that helps us as a company from the farmers in the room, from the financiers, from our customers, from people that aren't our customers but sit further down the supply chain that happen to be in this room. It adds a lot of value to our business, and hopefully by coming in as a fairly large processor, we can add value to the GRSB as well.
Very good. And I'm sure, I mean, you guys are, a company like Tyson, you were thinking about sustainability from a beef standpoint, but also from poultry and pork. I mean, there's a whole breadth of species that you guys are really dealing with.
Yeah, and we're part of poultry roundtables as well. So there's a whole range, and some of the lessons we learn here, we apply right across the business because the principles of sustainability are shared.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for all the information today, Ian.
No, thank you for having me.
This is Sarah Mikesell with the Cattle Site.